We can move this to see Mike. Mike! Oh my god, everything's been happening so much. I have so much going on. I could, like, actually launch myself to the moon. I have so much just, like, energy. I'm drinking a Sprite. You know what I would love to be drinking? A vodka Sprite. I would love to be drinking a vodka Sprite, but I can't have vodka anymore because I can't have alcohol at all anymore because it keeps messing up my stomach so bad. Even the littlest bit. I guess I haven't tried anything except for vodka, but vodka's the only alcohol I like, so there's just not even a point. Maybe rum. I'm grasping at straws. But yeah, it, like, on Saturday afternoon, I went to lunch. I had a drink at lunch and felt horrible the rest of the night, and that was the first time I'd had alcohol in, like, a month because I had thought that alcohol was causing me stomach problems, so confirmed definitely is. It's just so irritating. Like, what did I do to deserve this? I wasn't even a heavy drinker. I've never been a heavy drinker, but I love having 1 to 2 drinks. I love it. So, like, and of course it happens when we get this fuck-ass president. Of course. Because of course, the time I need it the most. I should have drank so much more during the Biden years. Why was I not drinking more? I didn't know how good I had it. Not that they were great, but you get what I'm saying. I got new glasses today after 4 years, and everything is super high def. Oh, that's fun. I remember when I got glasses for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, trees have leaves? That's incredible. So yeah, let me just tell you all the things that are happening right now. I'll just overshare. Welcome to class. So we're in the process of buying a house, which has been a lot. I'm gonna make a video kind of like detailing it. Oh, I'll put that on YouTube. I've been trying to post on YouTube more, I say, as I've done nothing on YouTube. I'll put that on YouTube. But yeah, I'll do, like, explain what happened, because it's too long for a TikTok, but it's like, wait, it's not enough for a stream. But anyway, we're in the process of buying a house. We thought we were buying this one house, ended up pulling out because of a variety of reasons I'll get into in the YouTube video. And then now we're going to see another house, and it's our second time seeing it. So, like, all the things are good. Like, everything is going well. It just, the process is stressful. Like, even though it's going well, we're getting the information we need. Like, I feel good about everything we're doing. It's just stressful. Like, it's so many emails. It's so many everythings. Like, there's just so many emails. Like, why are there so many emails? Like, why does everyone keep emailing me? Okay? So that's happening. I'm going out to dinner tomorrow, which I'm actually really, really excited about, but it's kind of far. And then I'm also going to see the house tomorrow. So, like, that's just a lot. And then I'm going to a family member's wedding this weekend. So, like, excited about that, but I feel like I can't even think about it. And then, so I'm going to miss school on Friday for going to the wedding. I hate missing school. Not even on any, like, my job is so important, I can't miss school type vibe, but it just puts me in such a stressful situation because, like, when you miss a day, everyone else is still there. So, like, this week, I have 5 days worth of work to do. I have to do it in 4 days while also being planned further in advance than I normally would because I'm going to be out. You get what I'm saying? So, I'm not done. I'm almost done. But anyway, I'm missing Friday because I'm going to a family member's wedding. And then not mine. And then I'm missing Monday and Tuesday, but not really. I have to go to another school to observe for grad school. So I get all of the stress of being out of school with none of the free time, which is awesome. And, like, none of this is anyone's fault. I'm just annoyed. Like, I've been very public. I don't like being in grad school. So I really don't feel like going to a middle school to watch them. And, like, I know it'll probably be good for me or whatever, but I just don't want to go. And, like, I'm really grateful I only have to go for 2 days because things could be worse. And that's part of why I picked this program. Because everything else they've let me do at my school. Like, I was supposed to observe, like, special education. I observed that at my school. Like, everything else I've been able to do, like, very quickly and easily. But this one, there was just kind of no getting out of it. Making subplans is the worst thing about teaching. Yeah, it's just like, and like I said, none of the things I listed are bad. It's just like, why is everything happening so much? But that brings us to, it really doesn't, but it kind of actually does. It's related to the house situation. HOA, kind of just like history of HOA and some horror stories. Some of them submitted from you all. Some of them found on the internet. Some people sent me from the internet. But anyway, all about HOAs tonight. that is one thing that we were like, absolutely not. We are not buying a house in an HOA. Like, it was not even a question. Like, absolutely not. We are both very anti-HOA, and thank you to everyone who's saying congratulations. Love you so much. Sorry I didn't tell you right away, but like, I wanted to tell everyone in real life. Sorry. I'm not going to apologize for that, actually. I said sorry twice, but did I mean it? Kind of, actually. Anyway, we refused to be a part of an HOA. So I just got thinking about it. And I was like, let's do HOA. Let's do HOA. Why I left education, taking a day off without making sub-plans is still an unreal concept to me. When I worked corporate, I loved calling out. Like, I would be like, I'm not coming. And everyone just has to deal with it. And you get to do nothing. And especially so, now I get sick a lot because I have allergies where I live right now. But when I lived in Miami, I did not have allergies. And so I never got sick. I literally went like 4 years without getting sick. And so I would call in sick because like we had unlimited sick time and other people would get sick. So they get time off and I don't, because people would be like, I'm sick. And like, if they can do that, I can call in. And I would call in when I just felt crazy. Like, if I just felt crazy, like, if it was, like, 2 days before my period and I was just feeling insane, I would just call in sick. I did that all the time. And when I say all the time, I would say I could probably call in sick, like, maybe once a month. But, like, from a teacher perspective, that's all the time. So let's go ahead and get into HOAs. If you are currently living in an HOA, I don't mean to scare you. I really don't, that's not my intention, but just know it's going to be scary. And if you do not own a home and you have never heard of an HOA, you don't know any of this, this is going to be crazy for you. You're going to enjoy it, but you're going to be like shook as fuck that people put up with this. Because I do not own a home right now. Like I said, we're trying to buy one, but I don't own a home. I've never owned a home. And when I learned about HOAs, I was like, why the fuck have people been putting up with that? Why the fuck have people been putting up with that? And before any real estate agents come in here and like fucking rip me apart, I understand there are some scenarios where an HOA makes sense. I don't even think I've said it so far. We're 7 minutes in. An HOA is a homeowners association. You pay to be a part of an association of the homeowners in your neighborhood or wherever. I think HOAs make sense when you have shared spaces. So like townhouses, you need an HOA. Like you have shared sidewalks, parking, walls. You need some sort of structure for how to pay for those things that get messed up. Like there's not really a way around it. Same thing with condos. I get that as well. For the fucking weirdos that want to live in a gated community where they have like pools and golf courses and shit, I get it costs money to run those things. I think it should be voluntary. But I just want to preface this with saying there is a time and a place, but I think 95% of the HOAs in this country, excluding condos and townhouses, should be dismantled. Defund the HOA. Defund it. And yes, we are doing Amanda Bynes next week. I'm very excited. So, what is an HOA? 73.9 million Americans, or about 27% of the population, now live in some form of community association. There are 3 types of standard community associations, including planned communities where the individuals own their unit and the land it sits on. The association owns common areas like pools, parks, and roads. Other names you may hear for this are a POA or a PUD, Property Owners Association, Planned Unit Development. I think that's kind of like what I was saying, like the golf course type vibe. Condominiums, where individuals own their unit and a percentage of all shared properties, such as lobbies, pools, and gyms. Oh, I guess that makes sense. I didn't know that, but that does make sense. So I guess like you own like 3% of the pool or however many people are in your building. In most condominiums, the association does not have any ownership of real estate within the community. So that's what I'm saying. Like the condos, it seems like it makes more sense. I live in a condo and I hate that I have to have an HOA. Mine hasn't been the worst so far, but I really wanted to find a home without one. Condos were the only thing in my budget. Yeah, oh shit. I was about to say, like, that's the thing with condos. Like, I get it, but that doesn't make it less annoying. You know what I mean? What was I about to say? Let me pick up where I left off. So cooperatives, where there's shared ownership among all members for both the units and the shared spaces. Instead of purchasing a home or unit, Owners buy stock or membership to become a part of the cooperative. This is how they do things in like New York. There's these co-ops, right? This stock or membership gives the holder rights to lease or occupancy for any given unit. So I guess what I'm referring to is the planned communities one. I was wrong. Because all these are HOAs, but planned communities is what I think we are referring to when we are having HOA hatred. So the first HOA was in the late 1940s. Veterans, this is going to be a history vibe if you didn't know. Veterans returning from fighting in World War II struggled to find affordable housing. So Bill Levitt, a former veteran himself, recognized the issue, and together with his father and brother, they invested in more than 4,000 acres of land on Long Island, New York. Using innovative construction techniques, this is basically the first suburbs. This is the first development. This is the first development where someone bought a big-ass piece of land and then parceled it all up and built a bunch of houses. Yeah, Levitt towns. I told you, we're on our history vibe tonight. While the community didn't have a formal HOA with a board of directors and governing documents, the community established rules and regulations which set the precedent for those that we see in today's HOAs. Over time, the Levitt family built additional communities of similar styles, and planned communities across the country were constructed following their blueprint, establishing the foundation for common living environments of the future. So this is a video from Facebook about it.
5 years ago, this was a vast checkerboard of potato farms on New York's Long Island.
You're right.
Today, a community of 60,000 persons living in 15,000 homes, all built by one firm.
So pink.
This is Levittown, one of the most remarkable housing developments ever. The idea that came to a man named Bill Levitt was this: why not apply to the building of houses the same principles that have brought other American industries to their unexcelled peaks of efficiency and service?
In the 1990s, there were literally 50,000 people in the Long Island Levittown, and there were only 129 black people there. That's astonishing.
Why not mass produce the elements that go to make up a house, just as the auto industry does with the parts that go into a new car? Bill Levitt had some other ideas. Put kitchen and bathroom back to back and let them share the same plumbing. Let your plumbers do their work without interruption and without waiting for the carpenter or the bricklayer to get out of the way. Pre-cut your lumber so it's all ready to be assembled into the frame of a house. With the waste removed, one truck can
the
deliver
thing
to
that gets me
site all the rough
is
lumber
they
that-
could have had this incredible efficiency without the racism. Like, this is a very efficient way to build houses. Like, they're explaining, like, you got everything same size, same shape, order it all at once, the guy installs it all at once. Like, it is efficient, but like, why'd you have to bring segregation into it? You didn't have to do that.
Easier and faster. Levittown houses are not prefabricated. Prefabrication means a factory operation in which large quantities of materials are kept moving to the workers. Here the opposite is true. The construction crews are moved to a waiting line of materials. This sort of organization and efficiency is all important in the vast defense housing program. That's the next order of business for the nation's home builders.
He's doing that shit. You get the point. So there it is, exactly what the fuck you would think it would look like. It's the suburbs. It's the suburbs. So, super racist. We are going to get into how HOAs are racist in a moment, because the first HOA, fucking Levittown, like we said, up until the 1990s, they were racist through and through. I'm sure there's still remnants of it today, because the 1990s was basically 5 minutes ago, historically. So, how Levittown was built and managed ignited an interest in planned communities, and then with the Federal Highway Act of 1956, and keep in mind, like, all of this, segregation is alive and well during this time. So, like, is it shocking that HOAs were created and very racist? Not shocking, very much emblematic of the historic time period we're in. Not to give it permission, but more to give it the opposite. Like, isn't this an additional horrible thing? So now it was easier to drive around, so people were willing to move further out. And then in the 1960s, the National Association for Housing Cooperatives was founded as an organization supporting the best interest of cooperative housing communities, making the way for the first true homeowners association to begin managing those developments. It offered education and assistance to community leadership. This feels like it's their PR. But here's the highway system. This is why we started to have the suburbs. This is when the suburbs developed and people started to move further out of cities, also for racist reasons, and for transportation availability, making that a possible choice. So here we are, like I was saying we would get to. White flight refers to the mass movement of white residents from racially diverse urban areas to predominantly white suburbs. that usually have HOAs, think the Levittown vibe. This migration was largely driven by fears of racial integration. Like I said, this is like segregation times starting to get into integration. Like civil rights movement, late 50s, early 60s is when a lot of the big things you learned about in school were. Like I Have a Dream speech, all that type of traditional, the big names that always get included. Obviously, the civil rights movement went on for a very, very long time, but that's the one that always gets the headline in the public school system. So as cities diversified, many white homeowners sought communities that promised exclusivity, stability, and control over neighborhood standards, often reinforcing the patterns of segregation. You're such a sociologist. I really am. If I didn't fucking hate going to school and writing papers, I would get a PhD. And everyone tells me you should do it, you should do it. Absolutely not. I was a research assistant for someone getting a PhD because I think I want to get a PhD. I love sociology. When I was a research assistant for someone getting a PhD, absolutely fucking not. I want nothing to do with that. That seems horrible. No. And every single person that I met in that PhD program was insane. And like, I really respect a lot of you sociologically and career-wise, but your personal lives are a fucking mess. I'll say it. Anyway, so the HOAs that followed. In the 1948 case of Shelley versus Kramer and the Fair Housing Act of 1968, led to anti-discriminatory policies that prohibited the sale, rental, and financing of houses based on race, religion, national origin, and sex. So, Fair Housing Act of 1968 made it illegal to be like, I'm not selling you this house because you look a certain way, have a certain religion, whatever. These efforts helped spearhead the growth and popularity of planned community living. So it was literally in direct response to integration in housing. People were like, oh, let me get on that HOA. And the types of communities available to prospective homeowners began to evolve. So this is the Shelley versus Kramer civil rights case. I actually don't know about this one. We'll learn together. The Shelley family bought a house restricted to whites only ownership. I'll run it back, sorry. The Shelley family bought a house restricted to white only ownership. The case became a landmark ruling in 1948. Oh, this is the case that, okay, I think I understand now.
If the housing shortage was bad for St. Louis in general, it was impossible for African Americans. The growing black population was still confined to certain neighborhoods by a wall of paper, legal documents called restrictive covenants, which limited property ownership in certain areas to whites only. It was done all over the country to segregate housing, and it was legal. But that too would change in this decade, after a black family named Shelley moved into this house at 4600 Labadie, on a block that was supposed to be just for whites.
Nice house.
Their fight to stay would lead to a landmark civil rights decision.
I sat at our breakfast table.
She's like not even old.
Shelley versus Kramer for about 3 years, I think. Because
Margaret Bush Wilson's parents were active in the local NAACP, and her father was one of the realtors involved in the Shelley case.
it was not set up to be a test case at all. Shelley just wanted a place to live. It was just that simple. They had come from Mississippi. They had lots of children. And they were living with relatives. In this climate, when St. Louis, like many of these cities, was overcrowded in a section of the city where blacks could live.
St. Louis attorney George Vaughn took Shelley versus Kramer all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. NAACP attorney Thurgood Marshall joined Vaughn in arguing the case, and they won. The court said racial restrictions on property ownership were unenforceable. The Shelleys had broken through the wall.
Here in St. Louis, for the first time, our people could go outside Taylor Avenue and buy a house, go beyond Natural Bridge and buy a house, and go past Delmar and buy a house. We were just that contained.
Good for her.
So in that sense, I think it had enormous impact.
But well into the 1950s, the newspaper real estate ads reflected the reality of where people could and could not live.
Everyone always thinks when like the court case gets passed the next day, everything is like, yay, but it takes so long for things to actually get like enforced and you know, enacted on a day-to-day level. So the HOAs that followed the legal changes that made housing discrimination illegal. In 1963, the Federal Housing Administration approved mortgage insurance exclusively for condominiums and homes exclusively for condominiums and homes in subdivisions that had an HOA. This sped up the movement from suburban communities to common interest housing spaces. So let's note that less than 10 years, was that less than 10 years? Because when was that? Yeah, so the Fair Housing Act of 1968, the Supreme Court case was in 1948. So within the same decade that they're making housing discrimination illegal, the federal government is basically encouraging HOAs. This is what I mean, like sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. I see you. I see you. I might be seeing you many years late, but I was not alive then. But I see you, and I see what you're doing. So by 1967, every state had adopted a Condominium Property Act, but the conversion of apartment buildings into condos was very controversial, as many felt that condominium conversions were displacing residents who were unwilling or unable to join the common interest housing agreements. Interesting. In 1972, real estate experts and Future Community Associations Institute members formed a plan that balanced developer needs with consumer protections. The persistence and work of this team to develop a statute helped lead to the federal government's passing of the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Act, which establishes minimum standards for federal program that involved acquiring real estate or displacing people from their homes or businesses. So let's get into the problems. Eisenhower told his aides that he didn't agree with Brown v. Board. Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't know if it's true, but it sounds true. So what's the fucking problem with HOAs? Aside from the fact that they're historically racist and were done as a way to enable people to basically get out of discrimination, things like that, an HOA can hurt people of all races in many very tangible ways today. They can put a lien on your house. One of the most powerful tools an HOA has is the ability to place a lien on a homeowner's property for unpaid dues, fines, or rule violations. So HOAs make rules about the colors you can paint things, having cars parked outside. And if you violate the rules enough times, they can legally put a lien on your house. And if left unresolved, a lien can lead to a foreclosure. If you have a foreclosure on your credit, you can recover eventually, but it's going to take a fucking while. So this allows the HOA to force the sale of the home to recover the unpaid amount. This is insane to me. So that's why I kind of don't buy it when they're like, oh, it's about consumer protection. Is this the protection of the consumer you're talking about? This just feels like a way for a neighborhood to force someone out without reason. Because it would be one thing if it was about fees. Even that would be bullshit to me, because I think you already paid for your house. You don't need to pay to live here. The fees would be bullshit. But the fact that it can be for rule violations, that tells me you just need a way to make an arbitrary rule to kick someone out of their home if you don't like them in your community, which is reading segregationist to me. Nothing pisses me off more than someone narking to the HOA about tiny infractions. So a lien can be triggered when a homeowner fails to pay their regular dues, special assessments, or their fines for breaking community rules. These funds feed neighborhood amenities. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Some neighborhoods have them, some don't. Like pools and landscaping and road maintenance, signs, shit like that. If a homeowner falls behind, many HOAs have the automatic right without going to court. They don't even have to go before a judge. This does vary slightly between states and I think even counties, but just know this is like the worst of the worst. But it might be a little bit different in your area. But in I think most areas, they can put a lien on your house. I think some places might make them go to court, but I actually don't know. So without going to court, they can put a lien on your property. Some states require HOAs to record the lien with the local government, while others recognize the lien as soon as the payment is overdue, even without formal paperwork. So the original subscription after you bought something, it really, really is. And it just pisses me off so bad. So once the lien is on your house, it can create serious financial consequences for the owner. And can I just say, I literally feel like I'm giving like a financial wellness seminar. Like I feel like I'm teaching you financial literacy. But I will say I'm going to make that YouTube video because I've learned so much through buying a house, and like really it's fucking dog eat dog out there. Like you got to protect yourself because everyone's trying to fuck you over. It's true. I'm sorry. So selling the home becomes difficult because the lien has to be paid off before you can transfer ownership. So let's say you have a bunch of palm trees in your front yard. The HOA lady fucking hates you. You rack up fines. There's a lien on your house. You're like, fuck these people. I'm going to sell my house and move. Nope, you can't. You have to pay off the lien before you can transfer ownership, because the government won't allow a title transfer. I think that's what it's called, like an ownership transfer, if there's liens on the house. Right? And there's ways that you can do amenities without an HOA. You can have opt-in amenity memberships. That is a very much a real thing that many neighborhoods do, where it's like, we have a pool. If you want to join, this is how much it is, and you are a part of it. And it's usually open to other surrounding neighborhoods as well. It's just like more casual. So it's like, we don't have to be doing this, you guys. We really just don't. The debt can grow quickly because of added penalties, legal fees, and interest. It can hurt your credit score, makes it harder to get loans, and it can escalate to foreclosure, especially in states like Georgia and a lot of southern, like low regulation states that allow non-judicial foreclosures, meaning the HOA doesn't need a court order to take the property. So I know a lot of people, when they're buying a house, they're like, oh, HOA, no HOA, it's not a big deal to me. It's only $20 a month, $50 a month. It's not about how much it's costing you on a regular month-to-month basis. It's about you giving up the rights to your property to this organization. So this is, like we said, they're very historically racist. During the time that HOAs were kind of created and popularized, they were used to exclude certain racial and ethnic groups from specific neighborhoods. Racially restrictive covenants were common in HOAs in bylaws and property deeds, explicitly prohibiting the sale or rental of homes to non-white individuals. So this is an example of one: that no part of said lot shall ever be sold, conveyed, leased, or rented to any person other than one of white or Caucasian race. They didn't even say, like, no black people. They were like, we're going to cover all of our bases. You have to be full white. We're not going to leave any gray space here for people that are racially ambiguous. No. We're going to be very clear about exactly what we mean. That no part of said lots shall ever be used, occupied, permitted, occupied by... Does that say... Hindus? That's so specific. Or any other person of the white or Caucasian race, except such they are in employ of the lot owners or their tenants, who are actually residing thereon. So literally, they're like, the only people of color we're going to allow here are the workers. That's fine with us, but no one beyond that, which is absolutely insane. So, I wish I had more Sprite. HOAs often operate outside of federal anti-discrimination laws, which allows them to act as modern-day gatekeepers for who cannot live in certain communities. There's some places where before you can buy, the HOA has to vote on you, which is gross. Like, I'm not going to beg to live anywhere. You're lucky to fucking have me. If you think I'm going to go in front of a board and be like, oh, please let me live here. Wrong. No. Historically, HOAs have played a role in perpetuating racial and economic segregation. Housing policies rooted in anti-Black racism have shaped many of the rules and strategies HOAs use today, limiting access to home ownership and generational wealth for marginalized groups. Research has found that neighborhoods with HOAs tend to be less diverse, racially diverse, and some still contain outdated racial restrictions in their founding documents. For example, in 2019, a Florida woman discovered a Caucasian-only clause in her HOA's governing documents, an unconstitutional but still legally recorded relic of past discrimination. Causes of HOA bias continue to surface. In Flushing, New York, a predominantly Asian neighborhood, the all-white HOA board fined 3 Asian homeowners for fence violations while ignoring similar infractions by their white neighbors. This is exactly what I was saying. The fact that they can literally foreclose on your home because of rule violations, I guarantee those rule violations are not enforced equally or equitably. These selective enforcements create financial barriers for minority homeowners and contribute to the racial wealth gap by making home ownership more difficult for certain groups because you got a fucking watchdog HOA next door, which is horrifying. Despite the Fair Housing Act's ban on racial discrimination, HOAs continue to create roadblocks for minority and low-income homeowners through restrictive policies, fines, and selective enforcement of rules. So, like, one is having cars parked outside of the garage. If you have a lot of people living in a house, you probably are going to have to do that if you have multiple family members contributing to that house. Like, that's how these little rules, like, subtly have the jab if you are lower income, which I know it's weird thing about, like, low income, but they're neighbors. You get what I'm saying? Even, like, different lifestyle, number of contributing financial members of the whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. So, many of these tactics echo historical barriers like poll taxes and literacy test. If you don't know, I'm actually teaching my class this tomorrow. After the Civil War, they passed the 15th Amendment, which gave black men the right to vote. Well, it said you can't deny the right to vote based on race. It didn't say anything about gender, so women still couldn't vote. But that's when they started being like, oh, you have to pay a tax to vote. You have to take a test to vote. Because they couldn't say you can't vote because of your race. They were putting in other methods to stop people from voting. Difficult to prove, but deeply harmful in their effects. I lost my place. By controlling access to housing, HOAs help sustain economic inequality and prevent fair participation in housing markets, which further entrenches racial disparities in wealth and opportunities. Targeting multi-generational housing, kind of. Exactly. First time catching a live stream. Hope y'all were sidetracked and I didn't miss much in the 30 minutes. You missed a little bit, but there's still a lot more to come. So, Levittown, back to where we kind of started.
White picket fences, clipped hedges, well-maintained lawns. From the outside, it looks like the American dream. But what the community of Levittown was built on doesn't include all Americans.
The builder Levitt had in his deeds something that said this property can only be sold to Caucasian people. Now, we have to remember, those deeds were approved by the federal government.
Dolores and Erwin Quintine experienced this government-approved racist policy firsthand when they went looking for a home in Levittown in the 1960s.
The guy said, you knows what you get you out of here because we don't sell the
Established
Very
1947, but how Levittown was established has an effect on American culture today, not just in Levittown, but nationwide. William Levitt built the first mass-produced suburb in the country, and what happened in this 17,000 home development set the standard for thousands of communities coast to coast.
The only way that Levitt could build that subdivision was by going to the Federal Housing Administration and the Veterans Administration, getting a bank guarantee for the loans to buy the land.
I would like to live in Mr. Redacted Town, please.
Blocked out in red on maps neighborhoods that had even one black person living there and refused to make loans there. It's why Levittown said no to black buyers at all.
We went to.
I'm gonna run that back because I was talking and redlining is important and I want you to see that part.
Administration, getting a bank guarantee for the loans to buy the land and build the homes.
But the banks blocked out in red on maps neighborhoods that had even one black person.
So banks would do redlining where basically they'd look at a map of the city and any black areas or areas where black people were living, even a couple like he said, they would mark it out in red that basically that bank won't do mortgages in that area. So that's why, not why, but that in tandem with HOA's racism is they're feeding off of each other. Does that make sense? Like the banks want to be in the white only neighborhoods and then the white only neighborhoods will even in a more stricter way exclude people of color so that they can keep the banks. It's like a racism loop that feeds each other. I did ethnic studies in high school and learned about all this. I wish everyone knew about it. I liked this comment. As a black person, I'm always shocked when non-black people are shocked by racism. Yeah, it's very like I said earlier, it's 1947 and you're shocked. It's disturbing to me. The part that's the most shocking to me, though, is that in 2025, people are willing to give up rights to their property for this. That's what I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like I don't understand how you can have such blinders on and be so driven by racism that you're willing to allow this organization to have foreclosure rights on your house. Like, that to me is the part that's shocking, which is just, I'm still not over it.
And living there and refused to make loans there. It's why Levittown said no to black buyers at all.
We went to the office where the gentleman was showing the houses. So my husband said to him, my wife and I interested in, purchasing a home here in Levittown. He said, get your out of here.
Richard Rothstein is one of the foremost researchers on housing discrimination in the U.S.
The federal government even required Levitt to place a clause in the deed of every home in Levittown prohibiting resale to African Americans or rental to African Americans. Those deeds are still in the homes today. They can't be removed.
They're no longer enforceable, but there it is, not to permit the premises to be used or occupied by any person other than members of the Caucasian race. Louise Casano has lived in Levittown since her parents brought her here in 1951, and she and her husband bought their home here 13 years later.
I don't doubt that a number of people bought into the community for the reason that it was Caucasian only. I have never heard of any incidents in this community where people of color have been abused in any way.
What do you mean you haven't heard of incidents where people of color are abused? They didn't let them in. That's the incident.
There may be a reason for that. Even today, just over 1% of Levittown residents are black. Just under 84% are white.
That's the problem with discrimination and racism. It carries forward.
When Levitt built his homes, there was no down payment for veterans, and for anyone else, it was $10. That's just $120 today, adjusted for inflation.
Now I'm going to get pissed off for real. What do you mean that the down payment adjusted for inflation is $120? What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, okay. What? I hate the economy so much.
And the homes cost about $8,000, the equivalent of $96,000 of today's dollars.
A $96,000 house where you have $120 as the down payment. What could you possibly get that today? Literally nowhere.
Prices black families could afford. But now, the value of a Levittown home?
$500,000 perhaps. The white families gained equity.
Housing advocate Ian Wilder says that created a huge divide of wealth.
Which could be used to put children through school, which means...
So I want to explain a little bit about what they mean by that, because they kind of were moving fast. So where he's saying the white families got the equity. So let's say I'm Meemaw and Peepaw. I'm a grandparent, and it's 1950. I won the war. I'm feeling fucking great. I move into this house in Levittown. I pay $10 fucking for it. I pay $10 fucking for the house in Levittown. I have children. I'm fucking living. I'm like, oh, fucking life, man. 20 years goes by. 30 years goes by. Holy shit. The house I paid $8,000 for with a $10 down payment, that house is now worth $300,000. I can sell it and I have $300,000. I'm paying for colleges. I'm fucking giving my kids money so they can have a down payment for their house. That huge rise in home price created all of this wealth for these white families in Levittown and in all the other HOA-ass suburbs where this happened as well. No wonder my boomer MAGA grandparents think everyone can just make it like that. Someone had a really good comment that, like, I want to be optimistic, but I just don't think we're there. Where was it? It was a good comment. Someone said, I can't find it. I want to read who they are. Oh, there it is. Clover Remix. Can we have 1940s economy without 1940s societal views? So I have so many thoughts about this, and I think, like, that's the vision, yes, like, to be able to have affordable housing, but it's equitable and, like, non-discriminatory. But, like, this is what you have to think about. The, like, very advantageous economics to white families in the 1940s was built on the current oppression to black families. Not to say that like ending racism caused housing prices to go up and we didn't end racism, but do you see what I'm saying? So like in the 1940s, where white families could have a nanny that lived with them even if they were middle class, that's because the nanny was underpaid. That's what I'm saying. The housing thing is more about like corporate greed, and like there's a lot of other factors there. But I think like the 1940s are like, oh, people were making so much money in these regular jobs and they were also discriminating pay, so then these workers were making, you know what I'm saying? Like, not to say we can't do better than we're doing now, but I think like that does play a factor. Like, why do we subsidize corn but not home ownership? Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, we can be doing so much better, truly so much better to be done.
Through college, which means those children have a shot at a better paying job. The families that couldn't buy here lost $400,000 worth of equity.
That segregation, enforced by the government and kept in place to this day, means that most whites have lived separately from blacks for generations.
I feel like what happened in the 1960s when a lot of segregation laws were like reverse changed, however you want to phrase it, is basically the US government was taking like segregation and discrimination and passing the baton to the banks and the HOAs and like the school systems. That's really what I feel like kind of happened. Sorry, my hair looked weird, but I realized it was my collar in there. It was capitalism all along. Stardust Mosaic, thank you for subscribing for 19 months.
Now, there were a few exceptions in the years after World War II. Well, sort of. Madeline Quintine shows us the clippings about her dad, a community leader. He was the man run out of Levittown nearly 60 years ago.
My father was about home ownership.
Irwin Quintine was finally able to buy a home here in Roanoke Park. The North Amityville subdivision, 4 miles from Levittown, advertised that all men are created equal.
It was basically where African Americans live.
And while they did build up equity, it was separate and unequal. North Amityville is now 92% black or Latino and has a median income of about $73,500.
Keep in mind, this is Long Island.
62 cents for each dollar Levittowners earn. So the housing discrimination that started 70 years ago in Levittown and spread nationwide created the wealth gap for African American families today.
Only in America. That's all I can tell you. Only in America would this happen, I guess.
James,
Real.
what are some other ways this historical segregation has played out?
Well, Tamsin, it plays out in even more ways involving housing. Get this, a pair of detailed studies recently showed that nationwide, black-owned homes are charged much higher property taxes than those owned by whites. But black-owned homes are typically valued a lot lower than white-owned homes, sometimes when they're right next door to each other. The deeds in Levittown homes have a clause not to permit any person other than members
I didn't know
of the
that.
Caucasian
I'm very
race.
shook at
We
that.
have to remember, those deeds were approved by the federal government.
Thousands of communities of color nationwide were put into
Love
the
local
zones you
news.
see in red. It's called redlining, a practice by the federal government which in effect prohibited banks from investing in black neighborhoods or with black people. The result is that most white Americans have lived separately from blacks for generations. A fact emphasized by protesters today looking to change the landscape. They've even marched in Levittown.
We have to acknowledge the
I guess
painful
this is
things
from
that
2020
happened
maybe?
in our past and look towards a better future.
The place that once only let
If
white
you're getting
people
your home valued, make sure there's no photos of you. So if you're a person of color or visibly LGBTQ, it can devalue your home. That's insane. When we get our home valued, I'm literally going to put on like the Stepford wife dress and just be there by myself and be like, hello.
purchase homes.
We need major actions to break those chains.
I call it remedies.
Those remedies should be significant financial compensation to blacks nationwide.
Find the name of the bank that guaranteed those loans. That bank owes reparations. That bank should be setting up a fund to subsidize African Americans.
I do agree with the reparations. And if it comes to pass, I don't know, but if it does come to pass, it should have been a long time ago.
And could be a long time from now, if ever. In the meantime, there are other measures attempting to challenge American inequities. Right here in New Jersey and in Massachusetts, state laws provide for what's called fair share housing. It's where at least 10% of all new housing in every community in the state must include homes for low-income residents who tend to be people of color. Mount Laurel, New Jersey, had to adopt fair share housing 20 years ago. And while critics feared crime...
I want to read these comments. I took the queer flags in my house down before having it appraised. Rural town. Yeah, I learned this in high school though. The value of houses of black-owned homes decreased the property values surrounding the neighborhood. So white people who weren't personally racist would move out when black people moved there because their house would be devalued later on, not to excuse doing that. I get what you mean. Like, I don't think that's an excuse, but that I feel like is more an example of how like our banking and financial systems have like enabled and encouraged this generationally.
Crime would rise and school test scores would drop. Instead, property values rose, and what dropped were obstacles for advancement for kids of color in the local schools.
Oh, shocker.
Do you recommend that they do more?
In New York, and specifically on Long Island, state legislators, led by Senator Kevin Thomas of Levittown, have required realtors to testify about long-standing practices of steering black homebuyers away from predominantly white communities.
There's a spotlight.
Go after those real estate
saying,
agents.
What exactly are you doing to train your real estate agent?
Why did it start over?
White.
We subpoenaed them.
And remember the of color in the local schools.
Sorry.
Do you recommend that they do more?
In New York, and specifically on Long Island, state legislators, led by Senator Kevin Thomas of Levittown, have required realtors to testify about long-standing practices of steering black homebuyers away from predominantly white communities.
There's a spotlight on them, saying, what exactly are you doing to train your real estate agents? And those real estate agents that did not show up, we subpoenaed them.
And remember the Levittown deed restricting occupancy to members of the Caucasian race? The wording is actually still in those deeds, but they're no longer enforceable because of the 1968 Fair Housing Act.
The time is here. Action must be now.
But it's still why this summer, Nassau County legislators called for a data archive to be created
AKA.
so homeowners and buyers can see if their homes and communities have racist deeds and covenants. The Quintines are among countless families turned away from their American dream just because they're black. But Irwin Quintine, the father, actually became a prominent fair housing activist, as pointed out on this plaque on the town building bearing his name and in this state proclamation.
Our community a better place by working to dismantle discrimination.
His daughter Madeline is now a commissioner for the town of Babylon. And 6 decades after her family was run out of Levittown, she's the owner of a large home with a pool in a high-end neighborhood. And on the day we met, her brother closed on his second home. There are advances to be sure. But as the Quintine family matriarch, a housing advocate in her own right, points out, we've all only come so far.
Don't go home
This is a
and
good
sit
video.
down, because once you won one battle, don't mean that that's finished, because once you win one, another one's going to come up.
All right, well, that's James Ford reporting.
Do you think that if the current Supreme Court tries to overturn that decision, those HOAs will try to reinstate some racist terms like states with old abortion laws did after Roe v. Wade? I think it would definitely happen. I don't think every neighborhood would do it, but I think there's definitely areas that would do it. So HOAs are very much a business. I can't really see this, so I'm going to skip over it. Let's go ahead and get into horror stories. I feel like we all know now where HOAs come from, why they exist, why occasionally they make sense, but most of the time they're really bad for homeowners, they're really bad for the community, and they really support racist and segregationist policies. So now we're going to get into some horror stories. These are a range of things. I know we started off very like historic and heavy, but some of these are a little more lighthearted, some are crazy, whatever. So, Some of these are submissions and some of these the ats like I found on Reddit or other places. They've threatened to charge every single dog owner in the complex if they find more dog poop on the lawn. I get it, it's disgusting, but what the fuck? I'm not in kindergarten and that shit does not fly. The shit is flying, apparently. The icing on the cake is when they sent out the messages a month into lockdown telling us they would be going around and inspecting and any violations would receive fines. Their examples included 1, having more than one chair on your front steps, 2, keeping bikes on your back porch, 3, keeping recycling bins on your front step, 4, chalk drawings during a fucking pandemic. HOAs suck and exist to suck money from you. I've literally had landlords who give me more freedom than my HOA. I hate them and will never again be a part of one. It sucks because I love my neighborhood and the people in it, but the management company can suck my dick. Literally insane. This is a Reddit story. He took in his grandfather and built him a wheelchair ramp since he's very old and can't really walk upstairs. His HOA hit him with a fine for the ramp being built without HOA approval, but he did pull a permit with the town. They then fined him again for not applying for a resident application for his grandfather. His grandfather has no other family other than him. My friend's father died, so he was the only other option other than a nursing home. Literally, that's insane to fine you because you didn't fill out an application for your grandpa that's moving in. And it'd be one thing to be like, hey, we need you to fill out the application. Here it is. Do it soon, please. Thanks. To fine you? And even filling it out is fucking stupid. But like, you didn't have to be a dick about it if you're the one enforcing the rule. So he gets slapped with fines every day and fights it for 3 months. I forget the breakdown, but the ramp and tenant fines totaled about $30,000 after 90 days, so we'll call it $330 a day. Eventually, he won the ramp part under some state rules regarding the elderly and disabilities, but lost on the tenant application. They basically made a deal for him to sell, basically forced foreclosed, but he owed about $10K from the application fines. That fine got taken directly from his sale, and he sold in a hurry below market value by quite a bit. He lived in that house for several years prior. He moved down the street to a non-HOA where he and his granddad live now. Like, this is literally insane. This is literally insane. My favorite quote about fines that I've heard, fines are just price tags to do something. Fines punish poor people. For rich people, they're just a price tag for how much it costs to do that thing. So I live in a non-HOA, but an HOA near me has been gathering houses for some time now. On my street, maybe 10 of the 14 houses are non-HOA. So I move in, and within the first month, I get a visit from the HOA people. Apparently, the previous owner helped chip in for projects he thought would increase the value of his land. I would do that. I can just chip in when I feel like it. I like it. Apparently, the previous owner, like I said, chipped in for various projects. I didn't get any of that info when I bought the place, so I told them I wasn't interested in it. They tried to sell me joining, and I refused. So they come back a week or two later and try a different tactic. Apparently, my neighbor is an HOA. I live on a corner, so only one direct neighbor on my street. And they try to say that eminent domain applies, and I will be considered as a member going forward. I tell them, no, that's not how HOAs work, and I don't recognize any affiliation with them. So now they try playing hardball. They have a surveyor come out and survey my neighbor's land to make sure my fence, my white vinyl fence that they hate, isn't on his land. While doing this, they try to survey my land. I wasn't home, but my girlfriend was, and she told them to leave. They said the HOA paid them, but they did leave when she pressed on it. The surveyor came back and determined I was on my land and some of my neighbor's plants were actually on my land. Whatever, I don't care, so I let it be. Yeah, I wouldn't give a fuck about the plants. Now they try and enforce their eminent domain for an HOA and come and tell me that I'm late on dues. I tell them I'm not paying dues since I'm not in the HOA. They argue with me. I tell them to leave and they're no longer welcome if it is for HOA stuff. I would have told them they're no longer welcome, period. So they come by one more time and try to give me some BS fines about my backyard. My backyard is fenced, and you'd have to be about 7 feet tall to see over it. I checked the security cameras, and they opened my fence, came in, and looked at my backyard. Oh, I never call the police, but I would fucking call the police for that. So I call the police for trespassing, and I haven't heard from any of them since in exchange for dropping the charges. Oh, you are that bitch. You are that bitch. Get them. They went in your backyard. That's fucking crazy. I thought you were going to say they got a stool and looked over, which is nosy, but I guess technically might be legal. But to walk in is crazy. That's crazy. So, how many slides do we have left? Oh, we're good. So, I have 3 dogs that play in the backyard. Some grass is dead from peeing and running around. I don't really care about the grass that much. My yard is fenced in, so no big deal, right? Hurricane Irma rolls through, took down about 40 feet of my fence. So what does my wonderful neighbor do? Take advantage of my fence being taken down from a natural disaster to take pictures and forward them to the HOA company. And why are for-profit companies running this? Like, why are you guys putting up with this? Violation fine, and I have to pay thousands to resod my lawn for a yard that dogs will be playing in. Meanwhile, the roofs of the townhouses' loose shingles are tarped for over a year after the hurricane before the HOA finally fixed them. But I'm the asshole for some dead grass you can only see when my fence is blown down. That was the last straw. Put up my house for sale, refused to ever live in an HOA again. I found a different realtor, found a nice house in a quiet neighborhood with no HOA. Several neighbors work on cars and keep their projects in the driveway. Some people are meticulous as hell about yards. Some, like myself, aren't really worried about plants, gardens, and grass. And everyone lives in peace and harmony, and property values are fine even without an HOA here to save us. And that's the thing I saw when I was looking at houses. The ones that were not in HOAs and the ones in HOAs, the prices were not really different. But also the area I live in does not have a ton of HOAs because like it's been developed for a long time, kind of like pre-HOAs. Some areas, some neighborhoods do, but most don't. And there's just not that much of a difference in pricing. I don't see why you would do it. To me, it's like all risk and no reward. So this is a news horror story.
This is a story we've been following all week long. A senior community kicking out a teen after both of his parents died, saying that teen can't live with his grandparents. ABC 15's Adam Waltz digs into the legality of the HOA's claim.
I've stepped in things that I find nicer than you people.
An understandably angry Prescott grandmother, Melody Passmore, taking in her 15-year-old grandson, Colin, whose parents died just 2 weeks apart. However, the HOA at the Gardens at Willow Creek had other ideas, sending a letter to the Passmores saying Colin has to go.
Just seems so heartless.
And he's 15. He's not going to live there for that much longer. Just get over it.
ABC 15 sharing the story that soon went viral. Now we're taking action, looking into the legality of the HOA's claim, something not unfamiliar in Arizona.
They were threatening to not only kick him out, but kick out the grandparents.
Youngtown, Arizona was the nation's first age-restricted community. In the 90s, when a teen was taken in by his grandparents in a hardship situation, Youngtown attempted to kick them out. The then Attorney General stepped in.
And he
of course it's
was shooting
Arizona.
baskets into the night outside in the driveway. And a lot of these oldsters didn't like that.
Woods sided with the family, finding that Youngtown didn't file their age restrictions correctly, and the kid was able to stay with his family.
It seemed to me that the right thing to do is to show a little compassion.
The Fair
How is
Housing
that not
Act
child
protects
abuse,
home
right?
buyers from discrimination, including age discrimination, but senior living communities have etched themselves a little loophole. One of the reasons senior communities can get around this is if at least 80% of the homes are occupied with somebody 55 or older. Former AG Grant Woods says in this Prescott case, he favors compassion over the rule book.
What would you want him to do? Turn him away? Oh, I'm sorry, you have to go live on the streets because we live in a 55 and older community. When a tragedy strikes a family in your community, I would think that these old people who live there would walk over and say, how can we help?
A lawyer for Gardens at Willow Creek issued a statement saying they are working with lawyers for the family. According to their CC and Rs, the HOA's board can also make an exception and let Colin stay. Woods also saying that he would be willing to volunteer his time to mediate the situation free of charge. Adam Waltz.
That's fucking insane.
This is a...
So, tried to fine me for having a U-Haul that was parked in my driveway overnight while I moved in. Went through my trash and recycling cans to make sure I'm separating I'm correctly separating items. If you passed, they'd put a happy face sticker on your can. They stopped it a while ago because I think the cans are city property. Who the fuck has time for this? Do these people not have jobs? The architecture committee inspector insisting I need to repaint my garage door because there was a thumb-sized slight discoloration that wasn't even noticeable from the street or even 6 feet away. You had to get right up on it and squint really hard to see it, which is what he was doing. I blew him off for the longest time until I finally found leftover paint and just put a quick swipe on it. A little later, he painted his house dark blue in an area where every other house is white, cream, or beige, so go figure. Someone's been sending out nasty grams about people not picking up after their dogs. I walk my dogs, but always clean up after them. So I get some photographic evidence or something because it's not me. During the COVID quarantine, they've been wrapping the jungle gyms and swings with warning tape, and a day later, someone tears it down. It's happened a few times. Pretty funny. My at-the-time girlfriend, now wife, rented a townhouse with friends in a community that had an HOA. There was a parking reserved for guests of the tenants. Ironically, parking was always an issue for my wife and her friends, but it was always simple for me. I just popped on the visitor's pass and was good to go in that lot. I spent the night probably once or twice a week, and one day I awoke to find my car missing. After some ace detective work, I found out that my 10-year-old at the time 5-speed manual transmission Honda had not been stolen but just towed. When I reached out to the HOA, they told me that there is a provision in the bylaws that a car could only be parked in the visitor's spot for a maximum of 72 hours, and a board member submitted my car to the list to be towed for abusing a visitor's pass for 1 to 2 nights a week is absolutely insane. They argued the language in the bylaws was such that the total amount of time the car may be parked was 72 hours non-consecutively, i.e. if you park there once a week for 10 hours a week, the 8th week we are now in violation of the policy. This is so fucking stupid. The HOA is just jealous they're in a relationship. You're in a relationship and they're not. That's literally what it is. The HOA was like, I'm not getting any ass. Like, I gotta stop them from getting ass. This is in opposition to the clear purpose of the provision, which is to prevent people from storing their cars in the lot. They similarly denied my request at the next HOA meeting to recover the $150 towing fee. Long story short, I sued them in small claims court and got back the towing fee plus the court costs. Plus they engaged a lawyer, so I feel good about wasting some of their retainer as well. And this was in the chat. The first HOA meeting I went to was crazy. Apparently there's some fuckery with the budget, and everyone hated 2 of the board members. Felt like one of them wasn't doing anything at all. Lots of yelling, and there was literally a cop there to make sure no one got violent. The 2 board members resigned in the middle of the meeting, and everyone clapped like it was a fake Tumblr story. That's absolutely incredible. Truly. Okay, this is Georgia lawmakers to rein in aggressive HOAs.
HOA nightmares. It's one of the most frequent calls we get into our investigative tip line.
That's right. Now there are new bipartisan efforts by state lawmakers to look at how to rein in homeowners associations that really go too far. Channel 2 investigator or consumer investigator Justin Gray is here. And Justin, in Georgia, a homeowners association can take your house.
You can be up to date on your mortgage, have never missed a loan payment, and still lose your home to foreclosure by your HOA.
None of it makes any sense.
Each month, Karen Gibbons mailed a check for HOA dues on her Gwinnett County condo to the address provided in writing at closing. But she says she never knew when or if it would be cashed.
It was just random. I mean, there'd be 2, 3, 4, 5 months go in between checks being cashed.
Then out of the blue, she was served with this, a notice of foreclosure by her HOA. With late fees and thousands of dollars in attorney fees, she owed more than $30,000. Did you even know you could be foreclosed on by an HOA?
No, never heard of it.
It's totally
You
insane.
all have.
It's totally insane.
Trisha quickly learned it can happen the hard way when her Cherokee County home of 18 years was sold at foreclosure auction on the courthouse steps for about the amount of spare change currently sitting on her coffee table.
It went for $3.25.
Quigley admits she did not pay 2 of her biannual homeowner dues payments, $800 total.
But whatever.
She ended up paying more than $10,000 trying to get right with the HOA, but the late fees and the attorney fees
That's crazy.
growing.
You know, I kept thinking, I paid all this money. How come it's not stopping?
A big reason? Attorney costs. Every email, every inquiry, every attempt to contest or fix or even pay the overdue bill adds to the bill.
That's a complaint.
By the time Juliette Graham finally sold
This is
her
crazy.
downtown Atlanta condo, her HOA bill had reached $250,000.
Holy shit.
You broke us. We're broke.
We checked foreclosure records and found that just 2 Metro Atlanta law firms that specialize in representing HOAs have filed 279 notices seeking damage and foreclosure.
2 law firms have done all of this to all of these people, and they said, like, Georgia, Metro Atlanta. Who are the people running this law firm? That is literally the most predatory way to make money I've heard in a fucking while.
Notices in just the past 3 years.
I can't imagine the mafia having been
For
any
real.
worse than what my experience was with this.
State Senator Donzella James introduced multiple bills this legislative session trying to rein in overly aggressive HOAs.
People need to be protected and safeguarded against.
The law firm owners are on the HOA boards.
This is where I restarted the whole thing.
The only way James McAdoo could stop his HOA from intercepting his paycheck was by filing for bankruptcy.
Holy
Regardless
shit.
of my wages,
He owes $36,000 and counting, predominantly because of weeds in his South Fulton front yard. They were garnishing $600 from his paycheck every 2 weeks until he started the bankruptcy process.
what way do you see out of this? Selling my home
Damn.
and just getting out of this neighborhood?
That's what Karen Gibbons did earlier this year, even though she still doesn't believe she did anything wrong.
And I just said, enough. I can't do it anymore.
She paid $34,000 at closing to put an end to this mess.
I don't know how it's legal.
A bipartisan
It's
bill
crazy.
sponsored by Senator James and Republican Rules Committee Chairman Matt Brass did pass at the Gold Dome this year to create a study committee examining how to change laws to better protect homeowners. Senator Brass tells me the #1 topic on the study committee's agenda will be those HOA foreclosures he says are taking families generational
That's
wealth.
insane.
And to
That's
have
crazy.
Some outside group come and take that away, to me, is again, it's un-American, and we're not
Yeah,
gonna stand
man.
for it in the state.
I'm confident I probably disagree with him on literally everything else. So I'm going to let this be the thing that unites me. That unites us, 2 people who view the world differently. We can unite over our hatred of HOAs.
Let's get to this.
So this is from Reddit. We live in a condo and began receiving $100 fines for not picking up dog poop. Seems like a very popular one. The area behind our building is a common area where lots of people walk their dogs around. I offered to submit DNA testing for my dogs, and they ignored me and continued to send notices of fines. I began taking my phone with me on every walk and took photos and videos of me picking up the poop with timestamp evidence. I sent a folder full of photos to the HOA with photographic evidence that I was picking up after my dogs. We continued to receive fines. I got a small trash can and kept it on my patio and began saving my bags of dog poop for 2 weeks. I did tie the bags, but they were obviously smelly as poop bags are very thin plastic. I then mailed a box of poop to the HOA office along with copies of the time-stamped photos showing I had picked it up. I told them that I better not ever receive another fine for dog poop because I had provided more than sufficient evidence that it wasn't us. Miraculously, the fines stopped and we haven't received anything for over 2 years. Incredible. This is another video from the news.
Literally drove us out of here. Families say they were forced to move from their North County homes or live in fear of retaliation from their homeowners association.
Our investigator Adam Recruzen spoke with 2 of the families who say anonymous neighbors constantly complained about their kids.
Yeah, and the complaints were where they were playing and just how loud these kids were. We all know that kids make
What
noise.
could they have possibly
but instead
done?
of just asking the kids to keep it down, these families say that they received warning letters.
Tucked away east of the 5 freeway in Carlsbad, a quiet private community with about 100 townhomes.
We moved here because there's a park near the complex and there's great schools.
Amy Lass says she and her husband liked it so much, when they had kids, they bought a bigger unit in the complex just so they could stay. That safe
Commitment.
and seemingly family-friendly environment also inspired Melissa and Nate Spear to rent in that community.
It's such a family community and neighborhood that this area you feel like would be the same thing.
But both families say that family-friendly appearance was just that, an appearance. In reality, they say some neighbors and the HOA turned their lives into a nightmare.
You didn't have kids, you could kind of do what you wanted. But if you had kids, it was like they were after you.
I was sad. I was upset.
That's horrible.
I remember coming to my husband and just crying and saying, I can't do this anymore. This is affecting my children.
They claim they were repeatedly warned their children were not allowed to play in the common areas of the property. If things got too loud, they'd get written warning notices.
Oh my God.
Saying the kids were interfering with the quiet enjoyment of their neighbors. If the noise didn't stop, there would be fines.
The letter indicated you had to cure the problem, which I anticipate meant getting rid of our children, or we would be fined.
In one
Cure the
example,
problem.
Nate and Melissa say they had a group of kids over to watch the Women's World Cup. When Team USA scored a goal, the girls ran outside and cheered. Here's what he says happened next.
So then they come back in, probably not 2 minutes later, all scared to death because the neighbors had screamed obscenities at them.
A day later,
That's
Nate
horrible.
tells me they got a letter saying their children were not allowed to make excessive noise in the common areas. That's just one example. Both families say they tried to take their concerns to the board, but no one would listen. So they moved
the
out
board
and
complaining?
filed this lawsuit that describes years of being harassed about their kids playing outside in safe common areas, threatening letters, and ultimately
Give them an
fines.
iPad and lock
Had
them in
the
the
bylaws
closet.
said that children couldn't play when I purchased the
The
property,
politics
I
of
wouldn't have
quietness.
purchased it.
Team 10 tried to contact members of the board to get their sign, but the community is gated and there's no listed phone number for the board. We did reach the HOA management company, who said in a statement, "We take all resident complaints, including lawsuits, very seriously. Unfortunately,
You have to take
we cannot
lawsuits
discuss
seriously.
details
That's
surrounding
what they
any
are.
litigation."
It's not so much what the bylaw says, but how you enforce the bylaws.
Craig Fagan is an attorney representing the families.
Fair Housing Act says communities cannot have rules that prohibit children from playing outside, just being children.
A lawsuit might sound extreme. Here's what both families say thereafter.
We just hope that in the future that the bylaws get changed and that kids can and families can have a great experience here.
And you heard from those two families, but there is
Do these
actually a
people
third
not
family
understand that if you
is
live near
also
people,
joining
you
in
can
this
hear
lawsuit.
them? Like,
So a lot of us live in a
if you need silence to that magnitude, why do you live in a townhouse in California? Go to North Dakota if it's really that fucking serious. So, moving on, my best friend S grew up in suburban Arizona. His family owned their home and rarely had problems with their HOA, other than it being generally fascist. Other than that, no problems. It all started with some cardboard boxes. S and his sister, at the ripe age of around 6 or 7, wanted to make a fort in the front yard, so the dad was being a great guy and helped them build a shitty cardboard box fort for them to play in. Being kids, they played in the fort for a couple hours and then proceeded to get distracted elsewhere. Not a day later, they received posted notices on the door and phone calls informing them they needed to clean the unsightly garbage out of their yard or be faced with fines. It wasn't a huge deal, but that left the family a bit jaded towards the HOA. Fast forward a handful of years later, S's dad decides he wants to paint the house. Now, if you don't know, most HOAs have strict rules on the colors and send templates for you to pick off of. He said the templates ranged from tan to slightly different tan. S's dad finds a color he likes that's more of a greenish tan and sends it and paints the whole house. The HOA proceeds to have a meltdown because they painted their house outside of the allowed color spectrum. S's dad says, no fucking way, it's basically the same color and I'm not repainting my entire house. So the HOA hires a contractor to come down with a paint color tester and post notices on their door with a detailed analysis of how this color is yucca tan. The fact that they're both tan. The fact that they're both tan. Even if he painted his house hot pink, I would be cool with it. But why are they both tan and you're still mad? It doesn't fit the spectrum, and if they don't repaint by the end of the month, they will be fined. Instead of folding, S's mom finds out when the next meeting is and discovers no one votes. The same dude has been president of the HOA for way too long, and there's some shady shit going on in terms of contracting. So she walks around the neighborhood the next few weeks campaigning and runs. She wins by a landslide, largest turnout for an HOA meeting since its inception. Apparently, everyone was also sick and tired of the bullshit, but just bent over. So S's mom is elected elected president and discovers that the previous regime was doing the old hook up my son-in-law by contracting his company and pay him stupid amounts of money to water and sand wash bullshit, she quickly ends all that shit. Rather than change any rules other than a few stupid ones, the S family office just decided to refuse to enforce any of them. S's mom goes on for years as president. Suddenly she decided to fuck it and didn't show up to the election, and someone else got elected. Now the new guy is trying to enforce the old rules, but everyone is so used to the freedom, there's a fucking war going on. This is amazing. Oh, and someone said in the chat, FoshDizzle22, that this is what they did. Police called to HOA meeting after monthly fees increase.
Welcome back. An HOA meeting in South Miami-Dade.
Of course, this is Miami.
This week after they were told
Oh,
their
Miami, I
fees
love you.
would significantly increase.
They say the rate hike comes on the heels of numerous other issues in the community. Now neighbors at Mandarin Lakes are banding together and trying to recall their HOA
I want to see where
board
this
members.
is, Mandarin Lakes.
CBS News Miami's Anna McAllister
That feels
joins us with
offensive.
details.
A homeowners association meeting at the Mandarin Lakes neighborhood in Naranja Lakes goes off the rails. The Tuesday night meeting was cut short after residents say the cops were called by the HOA.
Ridiculous. Nobody got violent. We're simply talking.
Furious community members say the
Oh, this
meeting
is like
escalated
South
when the
Miami.
HOA board told residents their monthly fee would increase to $350 a month.
The issue is that the HOA fee is going up for the second time in 1 year, and we were given short notice about the increase, and a lot of things on the new budget don't make sense.
Resident Zoe Sosa says one of the things that doesn't make sense is how residents are still paying auto insurance for the security cars that canvass the community when security is now riding around in golf carts.
Oh my
And we
God.
haven't seen any refund from the previous budget showing what happened with the
My
cars,
European
what
mind
happened
cannot
with the maintenance
comprehend
of the cars, and
this.
what's going on.
In addition to the price hike and security, residents say there's broken amenities, cars getting constantly towed, and violent crimes happening in the neighborhood.
Ew.
But these residents tell us when they bring these problems up to the HOA, it falls on deaf ears.
They discredit me. They tell me, basically go away. This is how it is. If you
I
don't
like
it,
that they're
no.
all like
We asked the
squatted up
residents how
together.
they
They're
feel
like,
about their HOA board.
Outraged, saddened, and threatened.
It's not a good feeling at all.
My message is simply get it together. Please, help us help you. This is a community.
We reached out to Mandarin Lakes about the
My
residents'
American mind
concerns,
can
and we were
barely
provided
comprehend
this
this.
statement explaining that the neighborhood had no choice but to amend its budget after receiving the 2023 budget from the Community Association.
This is a letter to the
what if we all joined an HOA just to disband it?
the board members.
Now residents say they're
If I had like billions of dollars, like if I had like Elon Musk level wealth, I would buy out entire neighborhoods to disband the HOA and then resell the houses at a loss to people that I liked purely based on vibes.
They're taking matters into their own hands in hopes of making changes at Mandarin Lakes. Residents say there will be a town hall in September, and many of them tell me that they plan to be there. For now, reporting in Naranja.
Oh, absolutely incredible. The poop scoop, another poop one. A New Palestine, Indiana homeowner who's in an ongoing dispute with his HOA got an unwelcome surprise when an HOA member went into his yard and defecated on the side of his house, not once but twice, and it was caught on camera. The 74-year-old woman initially denied the accusations, but according to court documents, confessed once the police had video evidence of her with her pants down. That's what I'm saying. These HOA people are like mentally ill, like they need help. The woman told authorities she had no personal agenda against the homeowner, but simply had to use the restroom. She was charged with criminal trespassing, criminal mischief, public nudity, and has now stepped down from the HOA board. That poop one was very different than I expected. So, a Missouri mother painted her 2 young daughters' swing set purple at their request. Looks fucking great. 2 years later, her HOA told her the hue was out of harmony with the other colors in the neighborhood and ordered her to dismantle the swing set or face fines or jail time. I don't think they can put you in jail. Can they? I don't think so. I thought that's illegal. The mom was so outraged, she took the HOA to court and a judge ruled in her favor. So it looks like they can't send you to jail for it. One Florida family decided to put up their holiday decorations on November 6th. the only day their light installer was available. Then they received a notice from their HOA saying they weren't allowed to decorate until after Thanksgiving. If they kept their decorations, they'd have to pay $100 per day. The homeowners refused to take their display down on principle alone and accused the HOA of being a Grinch. Like, all of these are very much a Grinch. HOAs often push the boundaries and lead to unnecessary stress and conflict, explains owner of Modern Realty. These associations can sometimes become overzealous, dictating minor details of homeowners' lives and infringing on their right to quiet enjoyment of their property. That's what I mean. Like, it's your house. You should be allowed to do whatever you want.
Frustrated Georgia homeowner slapped with parking fines
Another Georgia
by
one.
his HOA. Here's the problem, though. He doesn't even own a car.
It's the latest story in our series, Neighborhood Overwatch. Investigator Rachel Polanski is live at 5 from the state capitol. So, Rachel, some lawmakers are trying to fix this problem.
Yeah, after we brought this story and several others to State Senator Donzella James, she put forward 3 separate pieces of legislation related
Sorry,
to
honey,
HOA
the
reform.
swing set is woke. We have to
Bills
take it
resolving
down.
disputes outside the courtroom and before the
It
legal
wasn't
fees
woke. It was
start
out of
piling
harmony with the color balance.
A Paulding County HOA cut off this woman's water after she fell behind on her dues.
I had to
They cut off her water?
and ask people to borrow showers, to borrow a washing machine, to wash my clothes.
A Fulton County HOA hit this woman with a $23,000 lawsuit after she installed a therapeutic rock garden in her front yard.
I just think it's total
The rock garden
abuse
looks
of
good.
power, and it's a situation that should not have happened.
And a Coweta County HOA has been sending this man parking tickets for years. All different cars.
Different car.
So you're receiving fines for cars parked around your property,
Yes.
but you don't actually own a car.
No.
Still, Roberto Cardenas paid the fines because he was
Why did he
afraid
pay
the
the
HOA
fines?
would put a lien on his home.
It came to the point where I just wanted to sell the house and finish this nightmare.
At a Belmont Park Homeowners Association meeting last year, residents were told that all parking citation fees would be waived and reimbursed.
So what about the fines that were before today? Are they going to be dropped as well? Everything's going to be, our fines are dropped.
I'm parking.
It's out of harmony with the
Okay,
color
so-
balance is really the HOA's same reason throughout history. So true.
Oh.
But a year later, and Cardenas says he still owed $1,700. While the association
Jesus.
offered to credit $600 to his account, he says that doesn't come close to refunding the money he's already paid. Meanwhile, the Belmont Park HOA told Atlanta News First investigates they'd review the details of Cardenas' situation and find a solution for his
This is
specific
crazy.
case.
Horror stories are happening as we speak.
Oh, it's that
That's State Senator
senator.
Donzella James. She's introduced 3 pieces of legislation related to HOA reform this session. Among them, the creation of an ombudsman's office to handle HOA and homeowner disputes outside the courtroom. An ombudsman is an official, usually appointed by the government, who investigates complaints and attempts to resolve them. According to the Community Association Institute, 7 states currently have ombudsman's offices.
It's always, why
or
is it
similar
with the
programs for
backyard? Like, why do they
HOAs.
give a fuck? It's
And
the backyard.
They definitely do not need to impose fines.
In Georgia, an HOA can put a lien on your home and file for foreclosure as soon as you owe $2,000.
This is hurting everybody.
Another one of the senator's bills focuses on limiting the HOA's ability to foreclose on homes for minor fines. And that's not your car.
Not on my car.
It's something Roberto, Beth, and Valerie say is long overdue.
I feel that something definitely needs to be done.
It's about
just
control.
The never-ending assessments.
So they can monitor this shit, but not
We're sick of
desegregation
living
laws.
here.
Yeah.
You want to just part ways.
Yeah.
Frustrated.
Horrible. So these are some submissions from you guys. We moved into a new house about a year before my dad died. He passed away and we rented a dumpster to throw away his things that didn't have value to us. The HOA threatened to fine us for having it out. They'll fine you if you don't keep your trash in a trash can in the mudded part by the side of your house. Threatened to tow us the first night we moved in for parking on our curb. Do this anytime someone parks on our curb by our house. They also called the cops on us for playing music too loud in our cars. So there's this lady on TikTok. Oh, I meant to open this and save it so I didn't have to go in the browser because otherwise you'll see like a million notifications. So annoying. Yeah, there's just going to be a million notifications. I'm sorry. because I'm logged in. But anyway, there's this lady on TikTok from Mexico who bought a house. They formed an HOA after she moved in. The story takes so many twists and turns.
I'm going to give you guys story time on my two neighbors that I had drama with while I was remodeling my home.
Can I make this faster?
Neighbors as neighbor A and neighbor B, okay? Now, when I started the construction of my home,
why can I not
I hired
scroll?
a
I
contractor
hate
that
this
was actually a scammer, and there was a lot of things that he didn't let me know as far as like permits and like what we could and couldn't do. So when I expanded my home, I expanded my home into the back patio, into our backyard, right? My back patio, I have 2 houses on each side. I live in a gated community. And our patios were connected, and there was a small wall, and technically we could both look over each other's wall, but we don't because it's a little bit high, right? So once I expanded out and up, I put a window on neighbor
Man, I
B's
love
side,
Marina.
and there was an opening on neighbor A's side, which was going to be a window. Okay, I didn't know that windows weren't allowed, privacy laws, etc. So at the time, both houses were actually, neighbor B was unoccupied, and neighbor A, she doesn't live there, but she rents out her house, like long-term leases, right? So neighbor A's house was like looked over by our administrator. His name is Jaime. Okay, we don't fuck with Jaime. He's not the administrator anymore. So Jaime would, periodically go in and, I don't know, check on our house. And so when he saw our window, he let the owner know, like, hey, she's doing this, she's doing that, and you need to come apply some pressure. So, the owner of neighbor B came, and we spoke, and he was like, look, I have put the window on level 1, and he's like, I have plans to build, like, a covering, like a patio cover, and it's going to cover your window. He said, why would I? He's like, what? He's like, we came to the agreement that if I move my window to level 2, and then finished building his wall up and painting it at my expense, he would allow me to have the window. So that's what we did. We sealed up the window on level 1, moved it up, everything was fine, right? Well, that wasn't enough for the administrator. So the administrator then went to neighbor A and said, look, if you tell her something, she'll do this, because she did it with, neighbor B. So neighbor A and I had already talked about the plans for what that hole was going to be, because on level 1 of the other house,
Man, was she mining in her house?
Washer and dryer and my gas tanks, they were indoor. Well, they used to be outdoor, but we ended up closing my laundry area. So I had told her, that there was going to be just a small window for ventilation, and she had been fine with it up until she got wind from the administrator that I made changes for the other neighbor. So she told me she no longer
Moral of the
wanted
story:
window.
get everything in
And I said,
writing.
Okay, well, because that's my patio where I have, that's my
I don't think
laundry
this is
area
the
where I
lady
have gas
mining.
tanks. I can't, if I seal that room, I have to move my gas tanks to my roof. We'll have to create additional, like, it's going to be kind of a lot of work. I try to tell her, and we're going to need access to your side. We're going to have to drill new piping and all that shit for the gas. And she was like, yep, that's fine. And I was like, okay, I just want you to know that's what we'll have to do in order for me to seal this window. But I was willing to do it just to keep the peace, right? But when it came down to actually doing the work to seal the window and create new gas lines, she started complaining that it was too loud, that it was too messy. How long are you guys going to take? Because we had
Don't
to
piss me
access,
off.
We had to access through her house to be able to work on that side of the wall. And I was getting kind of irritated because I was like, first of all, I explained to you what this would take. And mind you, this was costing me quite a bit of money.
Yeah, this sounds expensive as shit.
She no longer wanted me to have a window there. And so finally I was kind of losing my patience. It took us about a week, and she wanted everything painted, everything nice. And we did. I sealed up the windows. But instead of sealing it up with like block, I sealed it up with clear blocks. If you guys have seen my stories on my laundry room, to let the lighting in, right? And well, she wasn't happy with that. She wanted it to be completely sealed with white bricks and painted for aesthetic purposes, I guess. But I was like, no, I need lighting, right? Anyway, so at the very last day where we were finally done after dealing with her for a week, and she literally was like telling us we were too loud, your guys are looking into my house, and like everything, it was something, right? And we were just literally trying to do the work that she asked us to do as fast as possible for the sake of keeping the peace with my neighbors. Well, anyway, on the last day, cuando le entregamos, everything was painted nice, and she hit me with a, well, because you build your wall so high up, it covers the sunshine from hitting my grass. So, and my grass died because of your construction, so you need to pay for your guys to lay down concrete in my backyard as well.
Stop.
And I was like, nah, like I feel like she was taking advantage, because I was like,
That's crazy.
First of all, my guys have been working on my roof for months, and your tenants never water your grass, which is why yours did die. Second of all, no, right? So we started to not like see eye to eye there. So on the last day, right, where we were done with her side, everything was painted, window was sealed, the gas lines were installed. I blocked her because she was just too much for me. She was just, I had done what I said I was going to do, and then it was just turning into drama, so I blocked her. Well, tell me why the next day she sent the police in the city. So she played me really to do everything that she wanted me to do for the sake of keeping the peace. But then she ended up fucking me anyway and screwing me and reporting me to the city for not having permits. They called the police for noise complaints. I have a lot of this on my YouTube, so anyway, that's
That's fucking crazy. I would like to share my HOA horror story with the class today. I could write a whole novel to this story because I have years of issues with my condo HOA, but instead I'm just going to write the cliff notes of my worst experiences with my HOA ever. My nightmare begins with my neighbors below me making complaints that their wall is moist. They told me I needed to call a plumber and send it to their house. Why would I call a plumber for your house when I have no visible issues in mine? The next day, the HOA plumber was knocking on my door, and I had to leave class to let him in because they stated it was an emergency. I let him into my house to look at the shower. He took one look at it and said that my shower is broken. I need to get a plumber to fix it and fix the condo and the downstairs bathroom too. I asked him if he is a plumber, can he just fix it right now? He said no. I asked him to put this in writing so I could look into the problem. He refused to put it in writing and then started cursing me out. The HOA manager calls me right after and threatens me that if I don't do what the plumber says, then I'll be responsible for all the damages that happen. At this point, I haven't seen any proof of any damage. I don't even know if my unit has anything to do with what my neighbor's complaining about, so something feels very off. The next day, I shower because I need to go to work and I only have one shower. I get a call from a lawyer. I like how all of the job titles are in quotes. Screaming at me that I'm not allowed to use my shower in the house that I own until I send a plumber to my neighbor's house. I tell this lawyer that I have not been served with any written notice of any problems at all. The lawyer on the phone tells me that this phone call is me being served with a notice. I laugh because that's not how it works at all, but okay. I hang up on the lawyer. My HOA manager calls me 5 seconds later saying he was on the other line of the phone call with a lawyer. That man was not a lawyer. And I have to let them into my house to fix the problem immediately, which means I have to leave back to school night as I was at work when this happened. I asked the HOA manager why he's sending shady people to my house and having people call me over something I don't even know has anything to do with me. He tells me that I need to just trust him and that he's been doing this for 15 years, so he knows what he's doing. I asked him to put all of this in writing so I can get a document. He told me that he can't do that because he is blind. Is he actually blind? Because, like, blind people can use computers and use documents. It's 2025. With, like, technology, but, like, that's not... Like, as an HOA manager, you having documents is pretty integral to your job. Like, I'm not saying you can't do it if you're blind. I'm just saying you can do it if you're blind or not blind. Like... The HOA manager confesses that the HOA plumber is just his employee who has no plumbing license whatsoever. I did a Google search on him and discover he has a construction license that expired in 2008. My HOA finally pays a real plumber to come look at the issue. They fixed the problem in my neighbor's unit, not even mine. There was a pipe that was attached to nothing, just leaking water into their house. My HOA sends me a bill for $1,000 for this. I sent them a letter asking how am I responsible when it says they have to maintain the pipes in our CCR. I never signed to have any work done and nothing ever happened in my house. It was all in my neighbor's house. This is so funny. Like, it's not funny, but it's just funny how people can be so stupid. And, like, how do people fall for this? You have to protect yourself. If it was all in my neighbor's house, so how could they send me a bill for that? They never responded to me, so I never pay it. I do some digging into the financials and find out that the plumber is on our payroll. I'm suspicious that they're trying to have the plumber paid twice. Once by me, because they were already paid by the HOA. My neighbor's pipe break like 3 more times the same year and floods their house repeatedly. It's really not funny, but it's just funny that they keep trying to blame you and it literally wasn't you. Like, and it just keeps happening and it's still not you. More crazy shit happens and more frightening and more fighting happens between them and the HOA and me. I could write a book about the other traumas I have from my housing with an HOA. Moral of the story, never buy into an HOA. They will bully you for months, try and make you pay for things you're not responsible for, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you have to buy a condo, never buy on the bottom floor, as this is where all the pipes burst, apparently. Oh my god. So... So, you deserve to know right away that this is not an HOA horror story. This is a non-horror story that I find funny. I will not be butthurt if you skip the submission, because how dare I ignore the premise of the stream. Back in uni, I took personal finance as an elective. It was a good time and I learned a lot of helpful info. My professor was the archetype for a real estate girl boss. She got her real estate license before she turned 18, did residential mortgage thing for a long time, then moved into corporate real estate. She knew her shit. My classmate and I trusted her easily and believed everything she said until she tried to sell us on HOAs. She told us HOAs are meant to protect property values. What a great benefit. And none of us would give in. No, Linda, you will not corrupt our minds. She showed us a picture of a beer can house in Houston to say, this is what happens when you don't have an HOA. Oh, I guess like tons of beer cans in the lawn. Is this who you really want for a neighbor? And the entire class responded in sync, yes. That is so fucking funny, like her banana. And also, Linda sounds exactly like my mother. Like, when my mother found out that we are anti-HOA, she was like, what if your neighbor paints their front door hot pink? And I was like, I'm the neighbor painting my door hot pink, so that's why I can't be in an HOA. Girl, I could write a fucking book. I actually met my boyfriend because he was being terrorized by his HOA and their crime boss attorney. He saw that I pressed criminal charges against the president of my HOA after she assaulted me at a board meeting where they discussed my claim that they'd falsified the most recent election in which I won a seat legitimately. And he showed up at that hearing to rescue me, as he put it. I think you were fine. We have interviewed dozens. Oh, y'all are kind of a power couple, though. Y'all are kind of a power couple. Where was I? He showed up at the meeting to rescue me. We've interviewed dozens of victims from HOA nightmares all across Maryland, and he has interviewed hundreds. He hasn't worked in 5 years, yet this man has a PhD and an MD. They destroyed his life, and they're continuing to fuck with him. They've been fucking with me for a year since they infiltrated my building. We'd love to talk to you. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in the chat because it is not what I wanted. Here, I'll just open it here and put it in the chat.
Do people have hobbies
This
anymore?
is, if you're into this is a normal gossip podcast episode about HOAs. I love normal gossip. I have not listened to this episode. It is a full hour, but if you are into this, I just wanted to include that because someone submitted it and I like that podcast. But this was so much fun. I feel like now we're all scared of HOAs and we're definitely not going to buy in HOA neighborhoods. At least I'm not. And next week we are going to be talking about Amanda Bynes. As always, we will be being respectful to her autonomy, respectful to her addiction, respectful to the struggles that she has been through. I worked very hard to get a recent photo of her that she took because I wanted to have photos of her, but I didn't want, like a paparazzi photo. I'm not a fucking bitch. So my goal usually when I stream about someone is if they watched it, would they be okay with it? Like when I stream about people I don't like, I don't feel that way, but like she's done nothing wrong to me at least. So yeah. But anyway, let's go ahead and play our freaking little game about HOAs. Kerchow. So this is a little trivia game platform thing that will be about the stories that we talked about tonight. So you just have to click the link in the chat, or I can put the directions back on the screen. You don't need a login, you don't need an account, you don't need money, you don't need an app. You can do it in your browser, you can do it on your phone, you can do it anywhere. But I will give people a few moments to join. There's some good pics of her from her art exhibit, and I want to see while y'all are joining the beer can house. I'm going to open it in a new window just because sometimes ads or weird things come up. Oh, wait, this is cool as shit. This is literally cool as shit. I thought it was going to be like beer cans in the lawn. This is a really dope neighbor. Oh, hell yeah. This is good for your property value. I thought it was literally going to be like beer cans in the lawn. No, it's art. Okay, that's cool as shit. I'm glad I went back to look at it because someone in the chat said they loved the house. And I was like, now I need to see. Help me get him some cans. I'll give people a few more seconds to join. Chat is very purple tonight. I like that. I was picturing a frat house. Me too. I was literally just picturing trash in the front yard, and I was still okay with that and still would prefer that to HOA loser. This was a really good topic. I really feel like this topic slayed very hard and was like the perfect length, the perfect cadence. I love when we just do the damn thing. You know what I mean? Would I want to live next to an artist that recycles? Yes. Can I choose to live only next to artists that recycle? Is that allowed? This stream was super fun despite the horrors. I think so too. Because this feels like something we can avoid. Like, I can choose to not buy an HOA house. And then I can give them my beer cans to add to it. It's fun for the whole community. I love that Nearpod hasn't taken down the Valentine's Day theme. They should keep it forever. I'm their most loyal user. I really don't want to go to work tomorrow. Wow. It'll be okay, I guess. I just remembered I have a meeting. I guess it won't be okay. Dun 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 dun. Ellie raised a hand, yes. Now Nearpod has all these little, like, reactions and things. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and join, or not join, I'm gonna go ahead and start the game. I can't join, I own it. In our HOA, we require you to do something a little unconventional to make your neighborhood look cool. Nearpod is simply better, IMO. Yeah, I do really like Nearpod. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and hit start. If you haven't joined yet, it will let you join late, so it's not too late for you. You can still join. I had parent-teacher conferences like 2 weeks ago, and only one person showed up to mine, but they were nice. But, like, it's always the people who show up whose kids are doing really well. Not always, but a lot of times. And I'm like, yeah, they're perfect. Seems like you're pretty involved, so that checks out. Like, they'll be like, oh, I checked the grade book, and I was wondering, and I'm like, you're really on top of it. Like, that's why he has a good grade. So, me and you are good. Or back to school night. We don't have that. Or we have one, but it's before school and it's in the afternoon and they can get their schedule and like it's for the freshmen to like walk around and find their classes. So like other upperclassmen go, but not really very often. I just sincerely don't want to be at school until 6 p.m. That's how I really feel. We used to be in the building from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. That's horrible. When my school does, like, evening things, it's always either 4 to 6 or 4:30 to 6:30. So it's, like, horrible, but it's pretty manageable. You still get home to, like, eat dinner at a relatively normal time. My parents checked my grades like I check my bank account. Never. I want to make an HOA that requires people to have RuPaul flags on their lawn. When I make a town, that'll be one of the rules. I was about to say I've never seen RuPaul's Drag Race, but that's not true. I've seen random episodes. I've never, like, sat down and watched, like, a season. But I always see the clips on TikTok, and I've seen, like, some random episodes here or there. So I know, like, some of the people that have been on it. But I'm definitely not, like, in the know. An HOA that requires you to show some sort of creativity. I finally figured out a good way to have, like, the TikTok chat and the stream chat. I know, like, I need to upgrade. I have the free version of my streaming software, and I want to get the paid one so that I can stream to YouTube, too. I feel like that's worth it. Would people watch it on YouTube? For my YouTubers that are watching now, if you're still here, would you watch it on YouTube? Why is RuPaul into fracking? What does that have to do with anything? Like, why does RuPaul have a stance on fracking? Like, what universe are we living in? It's profitable? To RuPaul specifically? Like, are they invested in fracking? Why? This is why you can't be a fan of anything. He lives in damn Wyoming. Oh. What the fuck? Like, of course. Because of course. I watch it here and then YouTube, so sure. Is he personally? He's out there doing the fracking. RuPaul is literally invested in fracking. Jesus Christ. You stopped showing up on my For You page, so I thought you died, but I'm happy I'm here. I'm not dead. To much chagrin of the demons in my brain, I'm still here. RuPaul is doing fracking with his death drops. Built private playgrounds for the board members' kids only. Thank God for us. Sometimes I can still hear her voice. My Shayla. There's a kid in my class who moved to a different school, but his name still comes up on like, just cause I'm too lazy to change it, on like the seating chart and like some random things, and every time we see his name, we say it in the My Shayla voice. I'm not gonna say his name, but it's like the same number of syllables, so it works. And it's just a really fun joke, and I hope that he can feel that from far away, because he really was a great kid. I hope he likes his new school. He still is a great kid, I just meant he's not really around me anymore. So I don't get to benefit from his greatness as I used to. I miss having teacher-student relationships. They're just so funny. Like, sometimes I look around and I'm like today they were arguing and I go, not a frontal lobe in sight. Because sometimes they're just so funny and cool that I forget that they're, like, literally kids. And then when I hear them acting like kids, I'm like, oh yeah. Two more questions. I love this little jingle. Hits a nice spot in the brain, right? It's like just on the precipice of being annoying. Do any of your kids at your school sell Girl Scout cookies? Not the students at my school, but a few of my coworkers have younger daughters who do sell Girl Scout cookies. So that's who I bought it from. And everyone said I was insane for this, but I don't think it's insane. I think it's the bare minimum. One of my coworkers put in our group chat, she was like, hey, my twins are selling Girl Scout cookies, and she put both of the girls' links. So obviously I got one set of Girl Scout cookies from one kid and one set from the other. And you didn't have to pay shipping or processing or anything because they just brought them to school for me. So it did not cost any extra money. It was just a few extra clicks. And who's only buying one box of Girl Scout cookies? Are you really being serious? I bought 4. And so, like, obviously I bought 2 from each of them. Obviously, Samoas. Samoas are my favorite. I think they're called something else somewhere else. Samoas are my absolute favorite. They're so good. And I bought the s'mores ones. I like them. I don't love them. I am almost done with grad school. Alrighty, nice job, Caitlin in first place, 1-800-MEGAN in second, Vitalistic, and then HOA's, an HOA's worst nightmare, wrong, tan-colored house, poopy HOA parking lot, slutty Southern, no way HOA, Saturn Cat, Linda's nightmare, Vicky Gunvalson would be the HOA president. I will scroll through the rest. Y'all always know if you mention Vicky Gunvalson, I'll read it. Nice job. Any memes, anything to share? I'm going to be honest, I'm going to get out of here relatively quickly because I want to lay down. But yeah, thank you for submitting things. Please, please donate and share Dr. Sufjan's fundraiser in the little QR code there. It's also linked on my page. And please come next week for Amanda Bynes. I'm going to try and make it as like kind, but as detailed as possible. We're really going to straddle the line between like, I don't want to just like obsess over her at her worst, but I do want to give a detailed account of what has happened to her thus far in life. So it'll be kind, it'll be respectful, but we will talk about some heavy shit. Just because she's been through some heavy shit. Why won't this whack-ass country let us have nice things like a house? I love the beer can house. That is literally absolutely beautiful. I'm obsessed with it. We will see the dancing lobsters. We will see the dancing lobsters. Don't you worry at all about that. But thank you so much for being here. I will see you next week for Amanda Bynes.